This is the first episode of Tion Talks, and I wanted to go over the most important, one of the most important questions in the first episode. And the question is, what creates wealth? Now, there's a lot of new theories that claim, whatever creates wealth. And I feel like a lot of them make the actual creation of wealth seem a lot more difficult than it really is. So let me go over what really creates wealth in a very simplistic way. And this should be a very simple thing to answer if things go relatively normally. Now, the world doesn't always go normally, but for the vast majority of the part, the world does act rationally. And so you have to ask, what is wealth? Well, to answer how to create wealth, a very easy step is to ask, what is wealth? Well, it does not matter how many digits you have on a computer, whether you have 10 million US dollars or 40 million euros or 500 million yen. What matters at the end of the day is your ability to consume goods or services. So that sets a very good, let's say, layout for seeing what creates wealth. Now, once you know that wealth is simply a measure of your ability to consume goods or services, then you want to know what increases your ability. And what increases your ability to consume is people producing these goods and services. And especially, that person must be you. But then you can consume what you don't produce in exchange of what you do produce once you have trade and buying and selling. But let's first focus on what creates wealth. And the answer is production of goods and services. So, if you can produce goods or services, you can create wealth for you, for your society, for your country. Now, a lot of people think what creates wealth is trade. And by trade, it's buying and selling. And this seems to make a lot of sense when you first say it, because the argument is one person's spending is another person's income. And when you spend a lot, other people make a lot, and they can spend a lot, and more people make more money. And so everything seems great. On paper it does, at least. But once you look not at your bank account, because your bank account will be raised, but once you look at your ability to spend and to get these goods or services, it won't change. At least not anywhere significantly so as promised. The thing is, simply buying or selling, it's purely an exchange. And we can give a very simple example of exchange. Let's say you have Jack and Jones with an apple and an orange. And it doesn't even matter who has which fruit. But if these two are just exchanging their fruits over and over and over, none of the two become wealthier. None of the two have more fruits. And at the end of the day, they're still left with an apple and an orange. Now, how they could become more wealthy is if they actually go out there and harvest more fruits. That will make them wealthier. But exchanging with one another over and over will not. And so that is a very simple explanation of why buying and selling or exchange alone does not produce wealth, because it does not increase the amount of goods and services in society, and therefore does not increase your ability to consume. But on the other note, exchange does increase quality of life for the vast majority of people significantly. And the reason is because, find someone who only does one thing for a living. And find someone who's only extremely good at one thing for a living. And there's a lot of those people. You would have to be good at everything if you did not want to live in a society that required exchange. And you could probably not be good at everything if you're a human like I am. So, let's take a lumberjack, for example. We're going to make a lot of eco-friendly people mad, but let's say he chops trees and that's all he does. Well, what if he does not want to consume all of the trees that he chopped because he just doesn't have a use for it? Well, now he could exchange it with other people who has food, maybe, because everyone needs to eat. And, well, his quality of life certainly improves that way. And the person who gave him food probably wanted wood. And so both parties benefit from exchange. So exchange likely does make people wealthier in terms of happiness and quality of life, but not real wealth, which is their ability to consume. But also, it could increase the productivity of people. For example, let's go back to our lumberjack friend. Maybe he's deficient in nutrients, and he's a skinny little guy who can only chop one tree a day. And he exchanges half of the tree for some protein, some meats, some vegetables, and also some dumbbells. And then he becomes an Arnold Schwarzenegger looking person. Okay, now maybe he could chop down 2 trees every day. So that's an example of increased productivity through exchange. Now, it may not be the best example, but there are certainly many other ways that exchange increases productivity, which causes everyone to become wealthier. So exchange itself does not create wealth, but exchange could lead to wealth creation and certainly does lead to a better quality of life. And another very dangerous idea that a lot of people have regarding wealth creation is that we can make everybody wealthy just by delivering free stimulus checks to their doors, and there will be no negative consequences with this, and everyone will become wealthy. But this, again, does not increase the goods in or services in society, and does not increase the ability for people to consume. And so when the federal government just runs all these fiscal deficits and just delivers free money to everybody's doors, well, now it's all done through computers, but same idea. It really just devalues the currency. And that devaluation may not always be immediate, but it always eventually comes, and that is a very evident pattern, especially if you study all of the nations that have printed money, and you'll see that their economies, after a few years of all of their money printing, all begin to just crumble up, and their currencies forever has always been destroyed. And so at the end of the day, what really creates wealth is not spending alone. It's not delivering free money to the doors or the computers or the bank accounts of citizens. Now that might increase the citizens' wealth if the government only delivered money to them, but it would not. If the government gave everybody money, it would not make society wealthier as a whole. It would just transfer wealth. And so at the end of the day, wealth is created from goods and services and the production of them. So now maybe people are going to wonder, well, what about investments? Does investing create wealth? Well, you have to remember that investing in a company is simply allocating cash into that company, which allows the company to produce more goods and services. And so investing does create wealth because essentially what you're doing is you're owning a company, or you're buying shares of a company that is creating goods or services. And because you injected cash into the company, now the company probably can produce more or better goods or services. And so this does increase wealth in society. And then what about savings? So nowadays, nobody's saving money. Nobody likes to save money. And here's the thing with savings. Savings only really serves two purposes, right? You're either going to save your money to spend it in the future, or you're going to save your money so that you could invest it. Or you're just saving your money and then dying with it, which is a pure benefit to society. And I'll explain why that is. So let's first go over saving for future consumption. Well, that doesn't really do anything because you're just saving your money today and consuming in the future. And there's two. There's purpose number two. You save to invest, which does help the economy because now you're helping a company produce more goods and services. And finally, there's the very unpopular and rightfully so reason, which is you save money and you die with it, and let's assume that you're not going to give money to beneficiaries, and you just bury cash with you when you die. Now, this is a pure benefit to society, because most likely the reason why you were able to have money most likely is because you earned it, and by earning it you produce goods and services in society, which enriches everyone else, increases the ability for everybody else to consume, and while you're not consuming. So you're basically doing volunteer work. You're basically doing a free deed for society. Now, you're not doing yourself too much good, but your country and the people around you, like people on the planet, people in your society, benefit from you working but not consuming. And they get lower prices from your lack of consumption. And so, next time, whenever you think of wealth, think of your ability to consume. Whenever someone promises to make your country wealthier, think about whether your ability to consume goods or services as a country goes up. Do the amount of goods and services go up, or do they stay the same? And all that goes up is the money supply. And once you think about that, you'll be able to kind of see through all of the modern theories and all of the complicated formulas, and you'll gain a much more accurate perspective on how wealth is actually created.